exactly where I belong. I'd fit exactly where I belong.
Check. Hello, everyone. It's Claire. Thank you all for being here. And happy Monday to everyone who's joining in. We are back for another episode of, I was going to say the name of my other show, but no. We're back for another episode of Tips and Tricks with 343 TV. Thank you all for being here. I'm just going to pop over into the YouTube chat and say hi to a couple of people. Hi, John. John was in a workshop of mine over this weekend. Andrew, Dave, Thomas, behind the 343 Labs name. Hi. Enigmatic Onion. Hello. Greetings again. I always love seeing your name. It's like, I used to have a love-hate relationship with onions, but now I've learned to cook a lot better during quarantine. I make some pretty neat caramelized onions. Adrian, hello. Greetings. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correct to some degree, and I do apologize if I'm not. But hi to everyone. Hope you're all having a great start to the week. It's in the U.S., which is where 343 Labs mostly is as a team for the New York side. It's Thanksgiving week this week, so I feel like we're all kind of gearing up to a little bit of a break. But 343 TV is, as always, as you know, brought to you by 343 Labs, and we're a school based in Manhattan and Berlin at this point. Our co-founder Max is helming the stuff over in Berlin, but the rest of us are over here in New York for a lot of the 343 TV hosts and instructors. And of course, we do a lot of online programming too. So we offer courses related to production, electronic music making, with things like Ableton Live and Logic, different kinds of concepts also like synthesis, songwriting, all the good stuff. And we are also an Ableton Certified Training Center. And we have 4 CTs, but even those of our of our instructors who aren't necessarily certified trainers have amazing experience. A lot of you know the amazing Abe Decay and John Selway. And yeah, we love sharing things with the community. That's part of the reason why we do 343 TV. We also just launched, and Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe you can put a link to this also. Our Discord channel. We have a 343 Discord now. So you want to join us on Discord and hang out with us. You can do that. That's a great way to connect with us too. And I don't know if we can get a link in the chat maybe for the Discord if anyone else uses Discord. I have started to try getting on Discord a lot. Maybe that kind of shows how old I am. But I'm trying my best, especially for a lot of the kids that I work with. But hi also to, oh wow, there's a helicopter outside my house. Vaco, hello. Eric, hello as well. Let's talk a little bit about Push today, which is what I wanted to talk about anyway. But I'm very excited about Push. If you have used Push before, or if you know about Push, let me know in the YouTube chat, and I'd love to hear about your experience with it. Or if you have any questions of Push off the bat, you can also leave those for me in the chat, and I'll try to get to them. But let's talk a little bit about this instrument, and also, in general, like what we can do with it, especially related to drums. But Push is an instrument created by the Ableton team, and they released the second version of Push a couple of years ago. Before that, they got the original Push, which was in collaboration with Akai, which maybe a lot of folks know as creating a lot of really great controllers too, like the MPK Mini, one of my favorites, one of our creative director TAETRO's favorites as well, Akai MPK Mini. But yeah, so Push 2 is what I have over here. That's what you're seeing. It's the second version of Push, and I will be using it today with Live 11, which some of you saw me talk a bit more about last week and the week before with the new release of Live 11. I honestly have not slept a lot because I've been doing so many things related to Live 11. Hopefully more sleep by the end of the year. It's a lot of things going on for the rest of the year related to Live 11. But yeah, so I'll be using Push 2 of Live 11 today. Push 2 is a really great device that I love using for doing a little bit more out-of-the-box programming, and not in so much of a out-of-the-box, like creative sort of way, although it does make me think out of the box. But we often describe being in the box as being tied to the computer. So I love how Push is a really great hardware device that kind of breaks away from that. And my Push, this is the Push that I originally got, and it has been through so much with me. It's been through lots of live shows, lots of rugged days on the road, traveling and touring and like doing demos. But it's been very, very sturdy for me, and I love using it to perform live and to do production stuff also. I used to do these things on Twitch where I would take like 30 minutes and make an entire song, and to be honest, that was only possible with Push. I can't think of any other device that would make that possible, at least for me and the way that I work with live. I do love other controllers as well, which some of you know, my superhero name is like Controller Lady, right? So, or Controller Woman. So, but yeah, Push, I think if I had to take the one device with me to like some kind of island, and maybe if I could take my laptop as well, then I would take Push with me. So I love it very much. But yeah, it's, let's see. We got a couple of things coming in. Start from, yeah, no, totally. If we're new to Push, that, then this will be an excellent start. Thanks for sharing that, sharing a little bit about that as well. Adrian, is there any new feature in Live 11 that is usable or by new or unexperienced users? Yeah, absolutely. I think Live 11 has some really great stuff for, programming and easy ways of making variations and also changing different kinds of settings. So I talk about that in my previous stream. So if you want to check that out, feel free to do that. And I've also got an intro to Live 11 video on my own YouTube channel as well. So for some of y'all who are maybe new, welcome. And I run my YouTube channel under my artist project dolltr. So that's in lowercase letters, DOLLTR !CK. So you can check that out. But yeah, I think there's lots of really great features that come in Live 11 and with Push 2. And Hank, take light version. I'm not super sure what you mean by that, but we're going to keep moving forward. So I got Push over here. You'll notice that I have some of these pads lit up. These are corresponding to a scale, actually, but we're not doing drum programming. We're not doing scalar or melodic ideas today. That's for next week. Yay! Today we're going to focus on drums. So let's go ahead and add a new device to this MIDI track, and maybe just taking even a step back. MIDI is something that we can use as producers to communicate with our DAWs, regardless of whether it's Live or Logic or Pro Tools or Bitwig or any DAW. Most DAWs actually. Some still don't, and I may speak about that in a bit. But whenever we're dealing with MIDI, we want to use some kind of controller, or we want to use maybe our mouses if we're entering MIDI data to communicate with the software. And we first need to, in order to hear any sound, we first need some kind of instrument. So a device in Live is a word that's used to describe either an instrument or an audio effect or a MIDI effect. But let's start with an instrument. So I'm going to add a device from Push over here. I have an empty MIDI track. Let's put some drums on, and let's find a fun kit. Ooh, that's pretty cool actually, but also it's in a different time signature. This one's pretty neat. Let's load it up. So all I was doing is I was using these top knobs of Push to scroll through the library of Ableton Live without even touching my computer. Like you notice I wasn't touching my mouse, and I could very easily make an entire thing from Push without touching my computer. So that's what I love about it too. It's really quite an alternative workflow from sitting at your desk and clicking around with buttons and stuff. So now we've got Push up here, and I'm going to play back a couple of the sounds. So that's a kick drum. This one's very distorted. That's a very loud clap. So because of that, I'm also going to bring down the volume a little so we don't harm our ears too much. Ooh, I like that. It's kind of like an alternative, like clanky sort of thing. Here's another kick. This one's lower than this one. This one's kind of like a filtered noise type of sound. Might be slightly tuned also. That's like it's another kick, but it's less distorted. So it's more of like a muted type of sound. Nice. We got some kind of hat over here. It's kind of a little close, but it's obviously like synthesized. Cool. And then we got yet another kick. So these four are kicks. I don't know if I'll have other kicks. Maybe I will. There are actually a lot of kicks in this drum rack. So you know what? Maybe this might be a good opportunity to switch this instrument out, which we can also do from Push. So I'm going to go ahead and browse for a different instrument that I want to put on the track. So instead of using this kit, let's find something else. Oh, that's pretty cool, and also has some samples, right? That's why we're hearing the melodic stuff. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go for this one instead. It's called the Abyss kit. I like that a lot. Cool. So once we're done, we can click Browse on Push to get out of that. All of these buttons are on the top right over here to switch between the different functions of push. So let's see if we got some better stuff here. Not better, but different selection of sounds. Cool, kick over here, snare, other kind of snare, some percussion-y things. Ooh, yeah, you gotta have some snare rolls, right? So perk and hi-hat, another tambourine-y, percussion-y sound. More hi-hat, another kick. So these two are kicks. Great. Three kicks. This one's a loop. Oh, that's cool. I like that a lot. Great. Okay, cool. And these three are like the synth parts, right? That we were hearing just now in the demo version of the loop. There's some vocal shout thing that's kind of cool as well. So one thing I love to do a lot when I'm doing drum programming with Push is before I even do anything, I try to get organized. So you notice how I was trying to like make some conclusions about which pads had which sounds. Let's go ahead and recolor these. So I'm going to hold down the shift button and tap on my kicks. And now I have options to check out all of the different kinds of colors on Push. So let's go ahead and color code a few of these sounds. I think I want my kicks to remain the same color as the main track. That's something that I usually tend to do a lot of. I'll keep the kicks the same. So these three pads are going to be the same because it's all like kick sounds. Oh, whoops, I accidentally tapped something. So I'm going to undo that. Great. So these three kicks. Let's organize the like mid-rangey sounds a little bit. So these three over here, I'm going to click on them and let's color them, this shade of pink. Why not? Great. So those are my three snarey sounds. Let's color the hats. I usually try to color them like a lighter color than others. So let's do yellow for these. I think that one is that. And this one too. Great. Just make sure that's okay. So we got our hi-hats. Great. What else did we have just now? We had actually this tambourine also. That's kind of like high-pitched as well. So let's color code that too. Let's also do the crash bowl, do it in a different shade of yellow. And one thing to note also is that even though I'm recoloring these samples on Push, they don't actually show up in live. I wish that we could do that. Maybe that's for live 12 or something like that, or Push 3 or whatever when that eventually comes out. But I also want to color my other non-drum samples, and since there's only 3 of them, let's also color them a single color. Maybe they can be green. So let's do green. Let's make that green also. Great. So these 3 are now the green stuff. And then my kicks are going to be the original color. And I think the only things left are these percussion-y things that I quite like the sound of. And let's also do them a different shade of green. So I think, oh, whoops, that was a kick instead. Okay, this one. Nice. Great, so now I got my lovely color-coded drum rack. I can start programming some stuff. So there's a couple of ways that I like doing drum programming. One of the ways is to sometimes just play something out and capture it. So I'll show you a little bit of this. Capture is something that came about in Live 10. So it's in the previous version of Live that we're currently using. But the cool part about it is that Ableton Live is basically continuously listening to whatever you're playing as a MIDI note on your controller, or it could even be with like your computer keyboard if you're using that. And it is listening and making itself available to play back and capture whatever you've played, even if you're not pressing record. And it can be also really good for detecting tempo. To be honest, this is something that I think Logic had for a long time because I'm also a Logic user. But anyway, Ableton Live came up with it, and it's like, yeah, okay, cool, we got some stuff. So what I'm also going to do, since I'm just thinking of ideas at this point, is I think I will also set the accent on Push all the way up. So that means if I have accent on, now everything that I play, even if I tap very lightly, it's going to be at full velocity. That's something that I like to do when I'm jamming out sometimes, so I don't have to think too much about velocity. Sometimes I do turn it off though, if I want to get something a little bit more nuanced and sensitive. But let's try this for now. So let me also just check something else over here. Cool, we were doing it a live over here. So let me just, I noticed we also had a couple of questions. Narmi, do you have videos for starters? Yeah, so that's actually what I almost said just now. If you head over to my YouTube channel, I have this series that's called Push Play, which is a daily series it was a daily series up until the Live 11 release. But what I do every day is I share a tiny little push trick. So if you head over to Push Play with dolltr on my YouTube channel, you'll be able to find that over there. So yes, Narmi. Hi, Jonathan. Nice to see you again. Coastal Town, are some of the notes repeated in that scale? Yep, that's correct. They are repeated. So we're not, again, like I said, we're not doing melodic programming today. That's for next week. Rio, if we play a live set with Push, should we memorize the pat buttons with each sound? Yeah, so if you want to find out more about that process, you can head over to my YouTube channel. I go into that more in depth over there. Adrian, perhaps you should suggest to Ableton that they add this push to color sync with the drum rack. I did actually, yeah, I have. For those of y'all who don't know, I do actually work very closely with the Ableton folks, especially about Push. We've talked a lot about Push, and they've been very kind in recognizing how I love using it. So thank you to the Ableton people. This week we were not like having a giveaway from them, but I still love them very dearly. So thank you, Ableton folks. But let's just start maybe thinking of something. I got my hi-hat over here, kick, and that snare is pretty nice. So we'll stick with that. Yeah, let's do this kick, because it's... Cool. I did a little bit of a strange swingy thing at the end. And let's see if Push is able to pick that up. So now if I hold down the record button on Push, which is this one over here on the lower left, and I click new, let's see what we get. Cool. So this is an example of capture not quite working, but I'm just going to lower the volume anyway, and notice what's happening in live, everyone. So in live, what the program has tried to do is listen to whatever I was playing and then put it into some kind of MIDI pattern. So in this case, I think because I did a little bit of the weird pushing with the other alternate kick patterns, live wasn't super sure of what exactly to capture. So let's try that again. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. And I'm also going to go all the way up into the first scene so that I can put some kind of drum loop into that scene specifically. So let's try this again. We'll capture some things and see how this goes. Cool. So we got that. Yeah! Nice. Very cool. And live has also detected that the tempo of my playing back of stuff was 163 BPM. So great job, live. Thank you for that. Let's bring this back up. And I think I'd like to quantize this a bit. So let's quantize what I just did. Oh, whoops, I accidentally pressed duplicate and do. Sometimes I do things because like I know the rough position of where all of these things are. So let's quantize. Great. Now we got something. Great. And that's probably like the fastest way to get something done on Push. You just play it and you capture it back. But what if we want to do some manual programming? Maybe we'll do that as like an alternate sort of thing. So if I head over here into session view, I'm going to stop this clip over here by clicking an empty clip slot. And I want to record something new into this, but maybe I'll just do some drum sequencing instead of playing back. So we'll hit back into note mode. And now what I might do is do a little bit of manual drum stuff. Maybe with this other kick drum might be kind of cool since this is like a more of like an 808 style type of sound. And to do that, I can immediately start clicking anywhere inside the top two quadrants of the Push layout over here. This part, when you're using Push in this mode, is called the step sequencer. So it's going to be able to let you choose different kinds of patterns by just pressing on any of the pads over here. So let's start with our long kick that we had. Let's put that over here, maybe. And we've got like a 1 bar loop right now. Let's make this 4. Let's maybe try a few more. Cool. So now we've just got some kick stuff. If I turn on the metronome, and let's rearrange a couple of these. Yeah, let's put that there. Cool. Let's do some snare stuff. Great. I'm also going to turn off the metronome now because we don't really need that too much anymore. Great. Now, in addition to doing the kick and the snare, I'm going to also add on a little bit of hi-hat stuff. for this, I'm going to turn off accent because I want my hi-hats to be a little bit more interesting with how they're going in terms of the velocity. I'm also going to turn on repeat. So this is going to let me play a series of notes by just holding down one pad and having them repeat continuously. So here we go. Got 16th notes repeating. Let's do 8th notes. And then we may do like the occasional stutter, you know, stuff like that. Let's see what we get. So we'll wait for another cycle of this to go, and then I'll put this into overdub mode. Here we go. Nice. Great. So we just recorded some hi-hats. And you can also see this show up in live. So here's the thing, like even if I'm gonna lower the drums. Even if you don't want to touch your computer, it can also be useful to just look at your computer because you can see the sounds that are being created. You can also go into clip view on Push as well to see exactly what sounds are coming through. So I'm gonna click on clip, and now I can see whatever I'm programming over here. They also do correspond to the colors in this case. So to Adrian's comment just now, yeah, this is a really great way of monitoring that. You can see it on clip view itself. And at this stage, I'm going to pop over into the chat. I do see a couple of questions. Maybe I'll leave this in the background. Kind of got an accompanying beat. Nice. Rio, what's the different features between Push and other launch pads, for example, the Innovation Launchpad? A good question. So for Push, it's really the most integrated controller with Live. You wouldn't be able to do this necessarily with a Launchpad. A Launchpad would be really great for launching different kinds of scenes if you were trying to control session view. I love using Launchpads as well. I have a few that I own, and I always recommend them to my students as well. But yeah, it's really a different instrument altogether. We're talking different controllers and figuring out what they're useful for. Push is really one of those things where I feel if you can make an investment, it's totally worth getting it. I will definitely concede that it is expensive, right? I mean, if you check out the price, it's way more expensive than, say, not way more, but like significantly more expensive than something that you would just get from another company that's not Ableton. But because Push is so integrated, I do think it is worth the price. But save up for Push. I saved up to get this Push. So that kind of speaks about this. And this is also secondhand. So all of my gear is secondhand. I talked about this in a previous stream, so I won't spend too much time on it. But get secondhand stuff and try to get it from... That's it. Try to get it from someone that you trust or that you know of and that you maybe want to buy stuff off of. But yeah, that's what's happening. So, secondhand gear. Let's see. Any other questions coming in? Why you choose Push? I think I mentioned why, I guess. I don't know. I love using it. It worked really well for me when I first tried it out, and I want it to incorporate into my workflow. If you've ever seen me do performances, which if you follow me on Instagram, you would have, I'm like one of the biggest like supporters of Push. Not one of the biggest, but I love Push very dearly. It's my baby at this point. Adrian, what about the APC 20 or APC 40? Are they worth it? So the 20, I believe, is no longer in production. So unless you're buying something, secondhand, yeah, it might not be super relevant to think about the 20. But for the 40, I have the 40. I love it. I've used the 40 and Push at the same time for a number of performances, and I find that combination actually really effective. I usually use the 40 and the Push in tandem in a very specific type of way, so I feel like it might vary from person to person. But whenever I have the 40 and I use the Push at the same time, the 40 is mainly my clip launching thing, so I wouldn't necessarily use session view on Push in that case if I'm using the APC 40. But if I'm doing them together, then I usually like using Push for anything that's sequencing related or like recording clips on the fly. And then the APC 40 is really great for navigation, for adding different kinds of effects, and for volume control. Like I love how we're able to do that from Push, but very honestly, when these knobs are controlling like a device parameter, it's really better to just have a separate set of faders that are able to control your different volume settings on the APC 40, which that's one part that I love about the APC 40. Also, there's a crossfader. So I love using crossfaders too, especially for more extended live sets when you're switching between one part to another. And now I miss a lot of my live sets because that was something that I used to do a lot of, play longer live sets compared to now. So yeah, also welcome to anyone who just joined in. We are at youtube.com/343labs for some tips and tricks with me, Claire. Also go by dolltr when I'm doing my artist project stuff. So yeah, we're doing some drum programming today. But as a reminder, if you want to find out more about the programs that we offer at 343 Labs, head over to our website. That's 343labs.com. We also have a big Black Friday sale. I almost forgot about that. How could I forget? So yeah, if you want to head over to the website, we've got lots of serious discounts on the courses that we offer. I am an instructor at 343 Labs. I do teach the some of the Ableton Live courses, and yeah, really excited for all of you to learn with us. So feel free to head over there. And if anyone over here is listening in or tuning in from the Berlin side, you can head over to 343labs.com. 343labs.de. Because that's our Berlin website. But yeah, lots of online offerings too. So great, let's bring this back up. This is like my manual clip, right? And then this was the one that I played back. So slightly different, got some different sets of drum sounds too. This one is pretty interesting. I think what I might do is I might duplicate this particular clip and add a little bit more to it. So I'm gonna press the duplicate button on push, and that's gonna make a copy of any clip that's already playing. So now I have a third one over here. And to this one, I'd like to overdub a couple more things. You saw me overdub the hi-hats just now by playing them in. Let's do a little bit of these synth sounds. Those might be kind of cool. So let's get some sound back up. And for this, I think, you know what, instead of overdubbing, let's just put them into, no, let's overdub them. That might be fun. There we go. Cool. Now here's something to consider. This particular sound that I just played, this like synth choppy thing, it does sound a little bit choppy because of the way that it's programmed. So it might be useful to dive a little bit into the waveform itself of this particular sound, because it was originally meant to repeat for a long duration, right? But I purposely cut it off with the durations that I was holding it down for. So whenever you click on any of these pads, you will be able to see the exact sound that's within the pad if you go a little bit deeper into the directories in Push. So over here, I've got my synth thing, right? Let's head over into the instrument itself. And now we can see that, yeah, over here, we've got that. It is a simpler and it's a sampled type of sound that's playing back. So I might want to adjust this a little bit, actually. What I want to do is change it from classic mode in simpler. And this is something that will also be the topic for another stream. So we've got classic mode and simpler. I'm going to switch it to one shot. And that means that I'll only have to press it once to play the entire thing. But as you can hear, I don't actually want the entire thing to play. I just wanted that first little blip, right? So let's go ahead and make this a little shorter. I can use the knobs on push to change the length of the sample. So now, when I press this, it's just that short little blip. Let's also create a slight fade out. I can use this knob to do that. We can see the shape changing in push, and it does correspond to whatever's going on in live as well. Great. So now we got that. Now, to this particular sound, I'm wondering if I might be able to make a couple more changes to it, maybe adding some kind of special effect just to this particular sound. Let's also fade it in slightly, because I like it. And I want to be able to, you know, make it even cooler. So let's head over to add device. That's what we used just now. But if you remember, when I talk about a device, I'm really thinking also about what exactly is it that I'm choosing. Am I choosing an instrument? Am I choosing an audio effect? Am I choosing a MIDI effect? And in this case, I think I want to choose an audio effect. So let's head over to device, add an audio effect. And the cool thing about Live 11 also is that the audio effects categories have been further categorized. So previously you would have all of the audio effects in one chunk in Live's browser. In Live 11, you get these split up. And the thing about this is, I'll show you over here in Live actually, because it's pretty fun to see. If I head over to the audio effects category here, I can see that all of these are now split up into folders. So I got things like audio effects specifically for drive and distortion. And true enough, we've got amp, cabinet, drum bus, all of these other drivey effects are underneath here. If I want to do something like EQ and filters, I got auto filter, EQ8 and EQ3 are both here as well. But I want to look up time and space, and that's something that might be a bit more interesting. I'm thinking choosing some kind of reverb might be more suitable for this type of sound. So there's a new reverb device in Live 11 that's called Hybrid Reverb, which I love a lot. So let's go ahead and choose that and instantiate it on this particular pad. So now let's load it up, and you can see that right behind my simpler of the synth chop, I have Hybrid Reverb. And let's take a listen now to how the synthy part sounds. Ooh. Let's also bump up the volume a tiny bit. Nice. You can kind of hear that happening. And yeah, that's kind of like one thing that I like playing around a lot with. I will say though that as you can see, the hybrid reverb is a little bit CPU heavy. So my CPU did bump up when I added it in, and that's why we heard a couple of little clicks here and there. And I will also say that's partially due to the fact that I'm streaming at the same time and then doing all of these things, and my computer is very stressed out, but it's doing a good job. Well done, computer. Be nice to your technology. You never know what they're thinking. But yeah, the hybrid reverb is really, really beautiful. I think it sounds much better than the normal reverb in Live. Not to say that it wasn't, the original reverb isn't good. It was decent, but now we got a lot of other opportunities for more interesting types of sound design and more interesting colors with hybrid reverb. You can also go even deeper into the device and choose specifically what we're using to shape the reverb. So hybrid reverb, and I mentioned this in a previous stream as well when I talked about new Live 11 stuff, is a mix of convolution and algorithmic reverb. So by that, we can get like really interesting combinations of sounds that we might not have gotten with the original reverb. That's, I think, why it's so special and why I've loved playing with it a lot so far. So great, we've got some additional space added to it. And this is even just with the default preset. I can change the type of convolution I have. Right now I'm scrolling through a couple of different IRs or impulse responses, so that's giving a different color to the reverb as well. And yeah, I think I like this for now, so let's go ahead and put that there. I'll also clear out my CPU spikes as well. But Tyra, hi, great to see you again. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Sorry, I missed your comment earlier. Adrian, thanks. I also wanted to know how it made sense to have a controller to handle clip launch and use push just for performance. Yeah, totally. I mean, if you do check out any of my other performances, you will see me use push for basically everything. So I do use it for clip launching. I do use it for recording, playing stuff, and it really can be the all-in-one thing if you learn it really well and if you practice a lot and if you get used to the way things are going. For example, just now you saw me do a little bit of the just pressing stuff. I did an experiment once where I just wanted to figure out like how well I knew things. So I turned off the lights in my room, and I could only kind of see, like, I turned the LEDs of push way down so that I could barely see it, and I just tried doing things as quickly as possible, and I didn't make too many crazy choices with the buttons that I pressed. But yeah, at this point I'm kind of familiar with like the locations of everything. So for example, device, mix, browse, clip, those are the top 4 things over here, and I know where they are located. So if I need to get to something, I just press that. So if you practice that and you get to know that a lot, you can use push pretty much as your all-in-one thing. Although, like I said, yeah, for certain kinds of purposes and certain kinds of performances, depending on what your setup is, you may want to have a separate controller that's just for the clip launching so that you don't have to go back and forth between session mode and note mode on push. So that's a consideration. That's maybe a little bit about like how to build a live performance set also. But yeah, I think experimenting definitely helps a lot. Like when I was putting together a lot of the performances that I did with push only, if I wasn't able to do something with push only, then I would be okay. I would say to myself, okay, what can I include in my live setup to supplement push without making it like totally over the top and unnecessary? So in those cases, maybe all I would need is just a second little controller like the Korg Nano Control to maybe have a couple of additional faders, because that's the one thing that Push doesn't have, right? The faders. And if I want to do like a delay throw, I like doing that on a fader as opposed to an endless encoder knob. So maybe that's something to consider as well if you're picking and choosing different kinds of controllers. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, Thomas, thank you for mentioning that in the chat. So head over there as well. And Jonathan, hey, could I ask a non-push question? I guess it's funny. I joke about this a lot, and no shade at all, Jonathan. But if you can ask a question and then you already ask it, you're not actually asking the question, but I'll just answer it anyway. So I've noticed that the drum rack and Impulse are very similar. What is Impulse intended for? So Impulse is really great for me. I personally don't use it a lot actually, but it's really great for experimenting with different kinds of drum sounds in a different type of setting. From my experience, it hasn't been particularly useful with Push, so that's why I usually like sticking to... I'll answer your question in the context of Push. How about that? I haven't found it particularly useful with Push, so I tend to use Impulse more so for just programming within the DAW, especially if I'm using different kinds of samples of the same type. That's what I found it really useful for, honestly. So not particularly useful on Push, in my experience, but if you want to explore it in live, you're totally welcome to. Adrian, do you recommend multi-core CPUs? I think it really depends. So to be honest, for most part, I do most of my work on a Mac, so I'm not super, I guess, choosy about the type of specs that I have. But if you're building your own PC, yeah, so go for the multi-core stuff. I've heard some really good things about my clients that I work with. A lot of them do use multi-core PCs and custom built stuff that they've ordered. The Razer stuff is really good, so I would recommend that. Heard lots of good things about it. Helped a few people physically build their setups with that too. So highly recommended. But yeah, great questions, everyone. Thank you. If you do have any of those, keep them coming in. And if you want to keep things relevant, try to keep them that push. Ooh, I just pressed on one of these. Sometimes you want happy accidents. I feel like that was particularly inspiring. So let's put one in over here. Nice. This could be a little softer though. So let's bring the gain down. And I think this percussion sound, I like that I accidentally did that. Sometimes you get the happiest accidents from some of these. Let's add a device, and I think I'd like this to have a da 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 type of thing, so some kind of delay. Let's add a delay on, yeah! So let's do time and space, let's do delay, put this on over here, nice. Let's take a listen to what we have now. So a little too fast, right? Let's slow it down. There we go. Great, very cool. And now we've got a lot of different kinds of textures, and you can hear the delay going back. I may reduce the feedback a little bit of the delay, but maybe we'll filter it a little bit more and make it have a slightly narrower width. That way we'll get a more controlled type of delay. Great. So yeah, that's something that you can also do. I like doing this a lot for drum programming when I have singular sounds that I program in a rack. And I find that adding delays can add a lot of texture without always repeating that note. Because I could have very easily, programmed this in several times so that I do get my da, 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 da rhythm. But instead, I just used a delay for it. And now it sounds really cool. I think to control this a little bit more, it might be nice to put some kind of compressor behind. So let's go ahead and make sure we have the delay selected. We do. Let's add another device, and let's add on a compressor. That's going to be in the dynamics folder. And just to put everyone on the same page too, whenever we think about compression, what we're doing is we're taking the softest and the loudest point of a signal, and we are bringing that closer together. So we're decreasing the dynamic range. Colloquially, a lot of people say that it's, making something louder. Not really. It's only making it louder if you add makeup gain, which live automatically does. So that makes things slightly confusing. But the way that compression works is you're taking the softest sound and the loudest sound, and you're making the softest part louder and the loudest part softer, so that this way you get a bit more of a compressed, hence the name, or controlled type of signal. And then you can hear some nuances a little better. You can make things fit a little better into your mix as well. So in this case, I'm going to compress this a little. What I will also do is that with this perk sound, let's solo it for now. So I'm going to hold down this solo button on push and tap on the perk sound. Now the perk sound is soloed, and I can adjust my compression settings a little better. There we go. So lowering the threshold. The threshold on a compressor is the point at which the compression starts kicking in. So now that we've got that, I think I might also want to have a slightly longer attack time so that that onset of the percussion sound doesn't get completely squished. So we'll have a slightly longer attack. Release we'll leave as it is now. So nice. There we go. So now you can hear that it's a little bit more controlled. It is a little louder, so I may bump things down a little bit depending on how it sounds in the mix of the drum rack. So let's unsolo the percussion sound and let's hear everything in context, and hopefully my CPU doesn't go crazy. So let's see what we get. Yeah, I feel like that sits pretty well actually, so I'm going to leave that as it is. We had another question from, you ever got trouble with your push? Not me personally. I know a lot of other people who, not a lot, I know a few other people who have raised some issues with push connecting to the computer, but honestly, I think that's more of a USB port connection. Because something to keep in mind is that the way push works is it works best with a power supply plugged in. So most of the time when I've had clients or artists that I'm working with who have had issues with push, it's largely a power issue. You can use push just with the USB connection, but when you do that, everything else on push is going to be dimmed out, so you won't be able to see things as clearly as you would with a power supply. And sometimes that also does affect reliability, and it might also affect CPU. So that's something to be a little bit aware of when you're thinking about controllers. And that's also something to be aware of in general, I think, not just related to push, but controllerism and using external devices. For example, there are some audio interfaces out there that need a power supply. You should probably use a power supply then instead of just taking something bus powered, especially if you end up using a lot of converters and or adapters. By that I mean something that looks like, let me see if I can show it to you over here. Something that looks like this. So if anyone else is using a USB-C Mac out there, maybe you will have seen one of these two before, but it's one of those USB converters that takes you from B to C. And I find that it really depends on where you get one of these from. Sometimes they are not super reliable, so because of that, they might cut out your power. Obviously, if you can afford it, getting the Apple ones will probably be the best. I have admittedly tried and tested those, and those are the most reliable. You can get some third-party ones. This one is, I forget by whom. I think it might be possibly by Aki? Yeah, this was just something that I got off Amazon. Yeah, so, and it, to be honest, this one I've had for several years now. It's been okay. It's been fairly okay. I mean, I haven't run into issues with it yet, so that's why I still have it. But yeah, that's something you could be a little bit mindful of, especially if you're doing a lot of conversion things from push. So usually for push, I try to have one dedicated adapter that I know works really well, and in this case I do have one over here that is the Apple adapter actually, so I know that I'm like always getting lots of reliability with push and the official Apple stuff. So that's a good question. I guess it wasn't really a question, it was something that I turned into a question. Sometimes I do that as well. Any other things? Oh, Jonathan, how does push know which effect parameter to control when you have multiple effects on the same instrument or rack? That one is a good question. So push automatically kind of chooses the best 8 things. It tries to be a little smart with that. So for example, if I'm here on my drum kit, if I go to the very first menu, I can see that the 8 knobs on push are automatically mapped to the best parameters that it's guessed. What do I mean by this? Let's go ahead and play the loop back, and I'll change some of these things. You can see that they're actually mapped to the macros I have in live. So I'll move these, and you'll see a couple of things change in live as well. Here we go. Filter. Delay. Cool. Overdrive. Ooh. You can really hear that in the low end. Saturation, compression, squash, low frequencies. Let's bring this back up. High frequencies. I think that's just like a shelf, or maybe EQ3 even. Cool. So let's keep that as that. So yeah, if you do have a set of active macros, Push's 8 knobs will automatically map to those. If you don't, so if you have like a random instrument, it'll choose the best 8 things that you might be able to control of it. So a great example of this actually is the delay that I had over here. The delay wasn't actually affected by any macros, but we've got a couple of other parameters here. So we've got the left and right channel. You can choose to sync it or have it be in notes, or sync it or have it be in milliseconds, excuse me. And then you can also choose the division of the timings that you have. You can choose offset. So how much the delays are off from their actual delayed repetition. Sometimes that's a really useful feature to do if you are trying to create a little bit more variation in your delays. Then we've got the delay filter, which you can see me control over here with this knob. That's probably one of the most visually distinct ones. You've got the filter width, so how thin or how wide the filter is. I'll try to switch that back to where I had it. Or let's do over there. I think that might be good. You've also got feedback, which is how much the delay will repeat after you've initially played the note. And then you've got dry wet, which is the overall mix of affected sound versus unaffected sound by the delay. So these are all admittedly really useful parameters. So Live tries to kind of tick those on and assign them automatically for you, which is pretty neat. And it's true for the other devices as well. So even here for compressor, we've got the 8 best quote unquote things, like ratio, threshold, attack release, the 4. Those 4 are really important things in compressors. And then things like knee, whether you're using like peak detection or RMS detection. You got the dry wet also and the overall output gain. So yeah, really useful 8 controls, even with instruments. Let's head over here. Let's take a look at Simpler. This was the Simpler, so the sampler instrument for the percussion sound that I had. You can see that I've got, again, useful controls. For example, just now I was moving this knob to change what mode the Simpler was in. So if it's classic, one-shot, slicing, you got the overall gain of the particular sample, things like transposition. So can be pretty neat. Fade in, fade out, choosing the start and end point of a certain part in Simpler. So just start, you can see that moving also in Live in device view at the bottom, and the end also moving in and out. Fade out, let's actually fade this one out a little bit because I think it ends very slightly abruptly. It's not super obvious, but just want to do that. And maybe a very, very slight fade in, super slight, like 2 milliseconds or or so. Yeah, just to tame a little bit of the harshness of the onset. So yeah, that's what we got now. Cool. So yeah, usually Push is pretty good with these, but if you ever do want to go even deeper into a menu, you can do that from Push 2. So if you Push as well, like I said Push 2 and then I realized that Push 2 is the name of the thing. You can do that from Push as well. And you can just click on the device name of anything and that goes into a deeper menu, and then you can access all of these other things. For example, now I can choose the other settings for my Simpler, like my envelope settings or my filter that I have over here. So here is the sound. If I want to turn this on, now I can get a more filtered sound with a low pass filter. But let's bring that up. And I'm going to turn the filter off too because I don't want to use it. I like the sound as it is. And you can also access basically all of the other settings on a Simpler that you would get in Live, but just from Push by diving deeper into the menu. So now let's dive back out of that. Wait, let me make sure that I'm on the main page. Okay, cool. And yeah, so you can do a lot of work just directly from Push. And that's one of the reasons why I think I have come to love it so much in a way. Let me just check if there are any more questions. I keep like turning back and forth as well. And Adrian, what's your advice for beginners on how to start drum programming? Should we learn some typical patterns and experiment? Some beginners rely on complete audio loops using Splice or Output Arcade. Yeah, honestly, I love using audio loops. I feel like that would be a really great start as well. For drum programming, I think the best way to learn drum programming is to experiment and figure it out. Listen to any kind of music that you want to emulate and just make the pattern over there. That there's something that I do a lot of even nowadays, but I did this a lot more when I was first starting off, called making sound-alikes, where I would listen to a track and just remake the entire track. So because of this, I learned so much from that. And I joke with a lot of my students now, and also with my friends and peers, that I learned so much by basically going to Disclosure School. Disclosure are a duo, and they make a lot of house and garage, and that was what I got into a lot of when I first started being in electronic music. So and this is like, baby dolltr years, but I basically did like a bunch of tribute shows to Disclosure, where I would recreate all their stuff, and I would sing all of the vocal parts, and I would just like remake their tunes. But that taught me so much, and I think the more I start, and it was on different levels too, right? The basic level is what pattern, rhythmically speaking, are they creating? Then the second level is the sound design level, like how do they get their vocals to sound in that way? Like what kind of compressors are they using? What kind of de-essers are they using on a vocal? And for sound design parts, it's like, how are they making that bright synth sound? And maybe it's because they're using another DAW, which they do. They use Logic. And at that time, I was still using a lot of Logic, and I still do now. It's just that for a lot of push stuff, obviously, I use that with Live. So yeah, I think that's a really great way to start. If you listen to anything that you want to recreate and you try to recreate that, you can learn a lot from it. And I would say the first level, like I said, would be patterns and figuring out like what the pattern is, and then focusing on the specific drum sounds. For example, even here, I have two of the different kicks, right? Let's also make this a little louder so I can just demonstrate this. So, right. So that's the first kick we had versus this other kick. And now, to be honest, for a lot of folks who just start off, you just hear it as a kick, right? But this one you can hear is more than a kick. That's like kind of like a longer, stretched out 808 sound. This one is a lot shorter. So because of these, I'm further developing my sound palette, right? I have a different way of thinking about kicks now. Initially, if you had told me like about like these are different kicks when I first started out, it wouldn't have been helpful to me at all, because I was just still trying to figure out what to do with a kick. But as time goes along, if you start listening out for more things, you become more attuned to certain sorts of parameters for each of these things. So that's a good question. Yeah. Oh, hi Scott, how's it going? Let's see. Yeah, that's great. I think Rio, you mentioned DJs and music producers in Indonesia often use Push Now. I think a lot of people around the world use Push Now, so that's great. Happy. Adrian, awesome tip. Yeah, totally. The reverse engineering thing is like super helpful. I would definitely recommend that for folks. Rio, I'm not sure if you're trolling me at this point, I guess, but yeah, I've been using Push to. This is Live 11. I've been using it for the entire stream, so quite obviously it does work with Push too. Man, some of these questions, I'm very grateful for everyone who's tuning in, but sometimes I just, sorry. But yeah, that's a little bit of like the drum programming stuff on Push, everyone. Let's take a listen to all of the things that we had. We started off with this captured clip. And then we got this one, which was our programmed one. That's a little different kick drum. And then we added in some synths and percussion. Yeah, and I should also mention that when I'm switching between these different clips in Push, I am in the session mode layout. That could honestly be a totally independent stream on its own. I could speak a lot about using session mode. But yeah, one great thing about Push is really that it lets you control Live remotely, which is one of my favorite parts about it. So if anyone has any last questions, feel free to put that into the chat. But thank you all for tuning in. I hope this was shedding a little bit more light on the ways that we can program with Push. I know that I did speak a lot more about philosophical things, but thank you for the questions. Really appreciate it. And I hope that you will tune in next week for more Push stuff. Next week, I'll talk a bit more about specific things that we can do with melodies and chords on Push. And if you want to get a head start so that you come to the next stream prepared and filled with information, you can check out my Push Play series on my own YouTube channel under my dolltr project. So that's DOLLTR CK in all lowercase letters. And yeah, I've got a series over there called A Trick a Day, and a sub-series of that is Push Play, where I share one trick about playing Push every day. So you can check that out. And I've got a good number of episodes up at that point. So if you want to go through all of them, it's like a 1 or 2 minute video every day just to run you through something quick about Push or something quick about live in general. And yeah, really happy to see everyone again. Thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow we do have a special episode of TAETRO Talks on the channel as well. So please tune in for that too. We will be able to touch base with our creative director, TAETRO, who we had a really great stream, actually. We had 2 really great streams 2 weeks ago when the Live 11 announcement was made. So if you want to check those out, you can also look at the previous streams on our YouTube channel. Those are archived, and this stream will also be archived, so you can always revisit things that are happening and that we've covered in general. And yeah, let's see. Did I get anything else? Adrian, well, but let's agree that the Ableton interface doesn't change. But yeah, maybe one first thing to remember. Maybe Adrian, are you new? I'm not sure if I've seen your name before, and at least on my streams. But Ableton is the company. Live is the software, and that's what I'll leave people with today. For everyone who's tuned into my previous streams, you'll know my catchphrase, and you'll have heard of that before. You could be using version 9 and we not be able to differentiate. That I disagree with, though. Version 9 does look a little different because of the fonts and stuff like that. The difference between version 10 and 11 visually is also quite different. If I would do it side by side, you would be able to tell. But again, everyone, thank you for tuning in. And don't forget that Ableton is the company and Live is the software. Tune in next week for more 343 TV. See you soon.
I could win, I could lose, I could choose to stand my ground. Thick or thin, black or white, day and night, we're safe and sound. Play the game, play it cool by the rules we dare not break. You could stay, but I say I'm awake, I live my way. Watch me stunning. Oh, won't be shunning. Oh, don't keep fronting. Oh, coming up, we're on our way. 'Cause I fell behind, waiting for another chance to climb. Yeah, I walked the line, waiting for another day to fly. Take my hand this time, we're gonna make the stars align. Now you see where I lead, where I lead. You'll follow. Hey. Hey. You'll follow me. Break away, break a day, find a way, no holding back. To the stars, to the sun, gotta run, gotta keep on track. Turning up, lady luck is on my team. Looking right, looking left, better yet, you'll see my dreams. 'Cause I fell behind, waiting for another chance to climb. Yeah, I walked the line, waiting for another day to fly. Take my hand this time, we're gonna make the stars align. Now you see where I lead, where I lead. You'll follow. Hey. Hey. You'll follow me. Waiting for another chance to climb. Yeah, I walked the line, waiting for another day to fly. Take my hand this time, we're gonna make the stars align. Done with thinking twice, I'm building me a different life. Watch me stunning. Oh, won't be shunning. Oh, don't keep running. Oh, coming choose to stand my ground. Thick or thin, black or white, day and night, we're safe and sound. Play the game, play it cool by the rules we dare not break. You could stay, but I say I'm awake, I live my way. Watch me stunning. Oh, L. Won't be shunning. Oh, L. Don't keep fronting. Oh, L. Coming up, we're on our way. 'Cause I fell behind, waiting for another chance to climb. Yeah, I walked the line, waiting for another day to fly. Take my hand this time, we're gonna make the stars align. Now you see where I lead, where I lead. You'll follow. Hey. You'll follow me. Break away, break a day, find a way, no holding back. To the stars, to the sun, gotta run, gotta keep on track. Turning in, turning up, lady luck is on my team. Looking right, looking left, better yet, you'll see my dreams. 'Cause I fell behind, waiting for another chance to climb. Yeah, I walked the line, waiting for another day to fly. Take my hand this time, we're gonna make the stars align. Now you see where I lead, where I lead. You'll follow. Hey. You'll follow me. Waiting for another chance to climb. Yeah, I walked the line, waiting for another day to fly. Take my hand this time, we're gonna make the stars align. Done with thinking twice, I'm building me a different life. Watch me stunning. Oh, L. Won't be shunning. Oh, L. Don't keep running. Oh, L. Coming up, we're on our way. You'll follow. You'll follow. You'll follow me. Take my hand this time, we're gonna make the stars align. Now you see where I lead, You'll follow. I could win, I could lose, I could choose to stand my ground. Thick or thin, black or white, day and night, we're safe and sound.